The pervert. Something that happened to my friend. Let's call her Rebecca. Rebecca was living in this little apartment which was extremely cheap. Why was it so cheap, you ask? Well, it was easy to tell when you visited the place. The building was just too old. This wasn't a problem in itself, since the upkeep of the building had been perfect. However, what it did mean was that the building was lacking security. There was no auto lock, reinforced windows, and if someone tried to break in, it wouldn't be that difficult. Rebecca wasn't particularly popular as girls went, but she was pretty, and I told her repeatedly that she had to be more careful as she was living by herself. The room she was living in itself was a really nice place, so I suppose that's why she didn't want to leave. Thanks to her carelessness, I ended up getting the biggest fright of my life. It was Rebecca's birthday, and as a surprise, I dropped by her room suddenly to give her a present. As I was chilling in her room, my line of sight drifted lazily around. Although the room was nice, when observing closely, you could see that the building was old after all. There was new wallpaper, so the walls were clean, but you could see stains on the ceiling. You could also see the closet doors were rather dirty. It was then that I decided to suddenly grab Rebecca by the arm, whilst she was in the middle of cooking, and drag her out of the room. Maybe I'm being a bit confusing here, but bear with me. Only after leaving the room and distancing ourselves away from the apartment premises did I stop to explain the situation to the angrily protesting Rebecca. As I was staring at the closet in Rebecca's room, I'd noticed a slight movement in the door, a slight vibration, as if something had just lightly brushed against it. Not thinking anything of it at first, I paid no attention. But as I lay there, bored, I realized I could also faintly hear the sound of breathing coming from inside. There was obviously some kind of creepy stalker hiding inside the closet. Most likely he was waiting for me to return home, and then he planned to pounce on Rebecca as she slept. He must have been able to break in easily, since there wasn't even the slightest trace of someone attempting to break and enter into her room. When I had realized this, I thought I was going to wet myself. I was about to scream, but considering the stalker's reaction and the possibility of him holding a weapon, I silently grabbed Rebecca's arm and dragged her out of the room. In this kind of situation, the best thing to do is to rely on the police. But here's the weird thing. As I hysterically explained to her the situation, Rebecca just laughed. She told me there was no guarantee that there was a man hiding in the closet. It could have just been my imagination, or maybe a cat had somehow gotten into her room. Besides, she argued, there was no guarantee that if a person was hiding inside her room, that he or she would be dangerous. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Indeed, it could be possible that my mind was playing tricks on me. But what if I was right? What if there really was a dangerous stalker hiding in the closet and preparing for an attack? Did Rebecca have no sense of danger? She told me that she didn't want to make a fuss unnecessarily, so she didn't want to call the police. We dealt with the situation by getting a few of the guys living next door to help out. By the time we got back to her room and checked the closet, there was nobody there. I guess the stalker must have realized something was up and made a swift escape before he was caught. Scary to think how close the situation was to going extremely bad. But you know what's even more insane? Rebecca's still living in that same room. She hasn't budged despite all my protesting. I told this story to my friends, but they just laugh at me. I wonder why.
Reverse stalking. I'm a stalker. I'm not proud of it, but that's what a human would describe me as. There's this girl I've been following back from the station to her house for the last month. The first time I met her was on the train, or should I say the first time I saw her was on the train. She had long black hair and brown eyes. She didn't wear much makeup, but she was still the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. She gave no sign of noticing me. Seeing her get off at the station just before mine, as if in a trance, I followed her, like a bee attracted to nectar. Following through past the station to the high street, then through the residential streets, she finally reached her destination. She didn't live in a particularly busy area, and the roads were dimly lit. The darkness provided a perfect cover for me to stalk her. But I still watched from afar, keeping a distance of 30 meters away from her just in case. I had seen what could happen to male stalkers who got caught up in Japan. Spying from behind a tree next to her apartment, I saw the girl walk up the stairs to the second floor. As she opened the door and switched the hall light on, I could see the room number. Room number 5, I mumbled to myself. I've been stalking her every day since. Well anyway, I've been keeping this up for the last month. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a creep. I haven't played any tricks or done anything to her. All I've done is to watch her from a safe distance. I haven't touched her. Japanese trains are hardly ever late, and so she would always get off at the station at the same time. She would always buy the same thing from the same convenience store and walk back the same route back home. It was like she was a machine. She always reached her home at exactly the same time. It was the same that night as well. She reached her apartment at 8:25, only 5 minutes off her average. As I did every day, I silently whispered, "Good night, sweetie," and I turned to head back home. It was roughly a 15-minute walk back to the station, but it was winter and the snow was heavy. It had taken us twice the normal amount of time to get back to her apartment. Shivering, I trudged through the snow. I needed to buy myself a coat, but with my pay, it was impossible. It was as I was about to reach the convenience store that I heard a strange sound behind me. Footsteps. How could that be? I thought to myself. I had walked back this way every single day for the past month. There were never any other pedestrians at this time. I stopped and looked behind me, but as I stared into the darkness, all I could hear was the sound of icy wind blowing against my face. Shivering again, I turned around. But as I started to walk, trudge, someone was following me. Frightened, I ran as fast as I could back to the station, and looking frantically around me as I boarded the train, I saw no one following me. It was roughly 9:30 when I finally got back home that night. I had gone to work early that day at around 5 in the morning to rehearse a presentation for an early morning meeting with the team. I was shattered, and without cooking or washing, I fell straight to bed. I must have slept for around 30 minutes when a deafening crashing sound seemed to erupt all around the room. At the same time, I felt a large pain to my forehead as if something had crashed into it. I woke up instantly. Panicking, I reached for my baseball bat and swung it around the room blindly. Something was in my eyes and I couldn't see properly. Had someone tried to break in? Eventually I calmed down, and coming to my senses I stared around the room to see what had happened. My window had been smashed. Looking around the floor, I soon found what had caused the damage. A stone. It was the size of my fist. Picking up the stone, I realised it was wet. Wet with my blood. Instinctively, I touched my forehead and winced. Blood was trickling down my face from a gash in my head. It was the blood in my eyes that had blinded me, but the wound didn't seem to be that deep. Wrapping a bandage around my forehead, I fearfully peered outside the broken window to see who had caused the damage. She was wearing a pair of red boots and a white coat. I suppose I hadn't seen her wear it before, as it was too snazzy for work. She moved her black hair out of her face and smiled at me. She shouted up, "You're mine." The girl I had been stalking had stalked me back to my house. From that day on, she's been stalking me every single day. Every day as I get off at my home station, I hear the same relentless footsteps trudging behind me. It's like she isn't even trying to be conspicuous. She's deliberately trying to agitate me. I truly regret stalking the girl. I didn't realise how scary it could be when you were stalked yourself. Even after I've entered my room, she stands outside, waiting, sometimes peering through my window with a malicious grin. Sometimes she waits for me to fall asleep, then rattles the doorknob to wake me up. She also leaves messages in my front door saying she's going to hurt me and torture me in my sleep. I got a DVD from her, which included plenty of footage of me stalking her. She had set up secret video cameras on the way back to her house. She'd set me up completely. Calling the police on her would only incriminate me, not her. Maybe this had been her plan all along. Or maybe she's just crazy. I think I should just call the police. At least in prison, I can get a good night's sleep.
My last affair. I'm married. But like most married couples I know, there's no fire, no love between us. I like her as a friend and companion, but I have no feelings towards her as a member of the opposite sex. I believe the feeling is mutual. Once you've been married for enough years, sooner or later, the feeling of affection you once felt fades away into nothing. If you've ever been or are married, I'm sure you understand me, even though you don't want to admit it. For those who aren't married, well, maybe you'll find out in the future. Then again, don't let what I say get in the way of what you want to do. I'm only speaking from my experience. And besides, it's not like I'm saying marriage is necessarily a bad thing. But what I am saying is that cheating on your wife is only natural. Her name was Yuki. I really loved her. True love, unlike what I felt towards my wife. Yuki was great. She had no wish to get married or live with me. She was the same as me. She just wanted to be free to do what she wanted and when she wanted. I wanted to be with her as much as possible. When I was with her, I could forget all about my troubles at work. She was okay with me having a wife and kids. Notice the past tense. Was. I've never understood how a woman's mind works. The longer I dated her, what she truly felt started to spurt out all over the beautiful white canvas which was our relationship, painting it black, blue, and red, making it needlessly complicated and ruining something which was just so perfect. Apparently, she actually wanted to marry me. She wanted me to get divorced. She wanted kids. She wanted me all to herself. I did love the girl, I honestly did, but at the same time I didn't want a complicated relationship. We were just sex friends, that was it. I'll be honest with you, when a man tells a girl that he loves them, what it means 99% of the time is that he just wants a fuck. It doesn't mean anything else. Nothing more, nothing less. If things start to get complicated, it wasn't worth seeing her anymore. I couldn't risk losing my house and family to a temporary love affair. So, I forcefully split up with Yuki. I told her we needed to stop dating. Then I blocked her on Facebook. The end. It was 1 month after we'd split up that I got a text from Yuki. "It's been a while," it read. I wouldn't have bothered replying, except there was a picture attached to the message. It was beautifully taken and starred Yuki. She was smiling angelically and appeared to be waving to me through the photo. She was so beautiful. If only she hadn't gone all crazy on me. I considered again if there was any possible way for it to work between us, but it was impossible. Unless we moved to a distant country which accepted dual marriage. My God, though, she was hot. It was as I looked at the photo, however, that I felt a chill run through my spine. I instinctively seemed to know that there was something eerie, something horribly wrong about the photo. My body seemed to know, but my mind just couldn't comprehend what was wrong. I transferred the photo she'd sent me from my phone to my work PC to take a closer look at the photo. Maximizing the photo viewer, I realized what the problem was. I knew this place. Yuki was standing in a park which was located right next to my flat. I'd never given away my exact location just in case. Was this simply a coincidence? But as I looked at the photo even closer, I realized this was wishful thinking. Far in the distance behind the smiling Yuki were my children. They seemed to be playing in the sandbox, blissfully unaware of the nearby danger. Terrified, I immediately called back Yuki. I apologized and begged her to forgive me. She just laughed and told me, "You're never going to leave me, you fool. Try this shit again, and I'll kill your kids." There's no escape from her. I should have realized that since at first I'd slept with her. I might as well have signed a contract with the devil himself. I can't escape. Please, can someone help me?